Hello, world. Good morning, namaste, and Nisam Bulavinaka from Sydney, Australia. I am Sashi Singh, the host of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Welcome once again to this highly anticipated weekly edition of our program, SSTP. Well, as you know, the countdown to the Fiji elections is well and truly on. That is, in just another 24 more days, Fiji will vote for the government of their choice. Remember, Fiji, your vote has power. Exercise your right to vote. Today, we continue with our series of interviews with the 5 main opposition leaders in Fiji. So far, the previous 2 Sundays, we have met Mr. Savinathan Narumbe from the Unity Fiji Party. Last Sunday, we met Mr. William Ngavoka, the leader of Sodelpa Party. Today, we meet the leader of the Fiji Labour Party and former Prime Minister of Fiji, and most importantly for these elections, to be known as candidate number 385, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry. We shall, over the next 3 Sundays, be speaking to the leaders of the National Federation Party and the People's Alliance Party, that is the following 2 Sundays. And then on the last Sunday before polling day, that is the 11th of December 2022, we will have all 5 major opposition party leaders together in the one forum on the SSTP platform. That program will address their campaigns and allow each opposition leader a window of opportunity to give their opposition leaders address to the nation. I hope that is something that you all are looking forward to, as I am most certainly looking forward to that program on December the 11th. This will be a program not to be missed because you will be able to hear all 5 opposition party leaders for the very last time before polling day on the one platform. That is live via Facebook and on YouTube on the SSTP platform. As I said, you can listen to the opposition leaders' address to the nation and make up your mind who to vote for if you have not decided by that stage. So exciting times ahead. And let me also remind you that SSTP is planning some other surprises leading up to Election Day, and will provide you those details hopefully next Sunday. I hope wherever you are well settled in to enjoy what promises to be a captivating, engaging, and enlightening interview in today's episode 45 with my chief guest, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry, leader of the Fiji Labour Party and candidate number 385. All that and a whole lot more in today's episode 45 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. As always, I request that today, as we go right around the world by the wonders of Facebook and on YouTube, that you please share the SSTP page on your own timelines so that we may share the interview with Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry with as many interested people as possible. And to ensure that you receive instant notifications for all future programs, please like the SSTP page and follow us too. Welcome to the Thinking People's program, Sashi Singh's Talking Point, live on Facebook and on YouTube. Let me tell you that my colleague, contributor, Nikhil Singh is away in Melbourne today as he is attending the 5th ITUC 22 World Congress. Regrettably, there will be no news segment today as I'm not too well to speak non-stop for about 10 or 12 minutes. So it's straight ahead to the program proper, and Nikhil will be back next week and will continue the news segment then. So let's move on. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point. We ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. Fijians want to know, as I say. Please like and follow the SSTP page if you have not done so. I have an important announcement before we begin today's program. Sashi Singh's Talking Point, SSTP, recognizes that questioning, constructive arguments, and opinions are part of conversation, but posts with aggressive personal attacks, profanity, name calling, swearing, defamatory in nature, and or threatening will be removed immediately, and offenders will be blocked from being a part of the SSTP program. Let's observe these rules and enjoy the program. Just before we meet our chief guest, ladies and gentlemen, let me share a personal milestone with all our viewers. Sashi Singh's talking point is today celebrating its first birthday. Exactly 1 year ago this Sunday, we launched our inaugural SSTP program, episode 1. Our chief guest on that first program was Fiji's renowned lawyer, Mr. Graham Everett Leong, and today, Graham Everett Leong is the new Solicitor General in the Cook Islands. The first program had two contributors, Dennis Rounds and, of course, our Nikhil Singh. We have come a long way since that first program on Sunday, 21st November 2021. So, to my small SSTP team and to our regular contributor, Nikhil Singh, who has been with us through thick and thin, thank you very much for all your hard work and support. Presenting the SSTP program is no easy task, as you all might know. However, with the team's assistance, our journey has continued. To our viewers, thank you very much, because without you, there will be no audience. And my biggest thank you goes to the brave men and women who have put their hands up and decided to come on the SST platform as my chief guests to face questions from me. They did that wholeheartedly because they did not have fear. Rather, they wanted the world to hear about what they wanted to say and to use this SSTP platform to speak openly, freely, in a transparent manner, and above all, as I said, without fear. Therefore, a very first birthday to SSTP, if I should say so myself. Enough of the birthday talk. We have a big show ahead of us. So let's move on now to today's program. It is time indeed to meet our chief guest on Sashi Singh's talking point. He really needs no introduction and has appeared on SSTP on 2 previous occasions so far. And I thank him for readily accepting our invitation to come on today's program. Our chief guest today, as I've mentioned, is none other than the leader of the Fiji Labour Party and former Prime Minister of Fiji, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry. It gives me great pleasure to welcome candidate number 385, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry, to SSTP. Good morning to you, Mr. Chaudhry. Good morning from Sydney, Australia. Good afternoon in Fiji. Nisam Bulavinaka, and welcome to SSTP, sir.
Thank you very much. A very good afternoon to all the listeners. Ram Ram, Namaste.
Hello,
Salam
yes, sir.
Alaikum,
Have we got
Nisam
internet
Bola.
gone static on us again, have we? Let's try that again. Mr. Chaudhry, welcome to SSTP, sir.
Thank you very much, Sashi. It's a pleasure coming on the program
Wonderful.
again for the third time. I hope that the internet is working now. And a
Well,
very good afternoon to all the listeners.
well, indeed. Look, we may have some disruptions due to the internet connectivity issues, but we shall persevere. It is very important for me to give you the opportunity to get your Fiji Labour Party message across to the voters of Fiji. So today, the window of opportunity is all yours, sir. Let me begin today's episode 45 of SSTP by asking you about the campaign period. Can you hear me, Mr. Chaudhry?
Yes, I can hear you very clearly.
You can hear me?
Yes, indeed, I can.
All right, thank you. So as I started off, let me begin by asking you about the campaign period. As I have raised in my last 2 programs, this has been a very long campaign period, a first in Fiji's history. The campaign started in late April, and it's still continuing. How would you describe the campaign period, and what has been the effects of such a long campaign?
Yes, it has been rather tedious, and uh, it also caused a lot of frustration among people who were wanting to know, please give us the exact dates for the election. But this was not coming, and it was
Yes,
kept
we've
as a
lost
very.
Mr. Chaudhry again due to that internet connectivity. Um, this is frustrating, but we'll persevere, as I said. Um, yes,
Can
Mr.
you hear me
Chaudhry, go
now?
ahead.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Such a such a long campaign period has been very frustrating, both for opposition political parties as well as the people of Fiji, who have been wanting a very clear decision on the date of elections. But it was kept as a closely guarded secret, and they were kept waiting until the very last moment. In the meantime, what was happening was that the Fiji First Party was using this to their advantage by campaigning at public expense, using government resources, and giving out freebies paid for out of the taxpayers' money. So they took great advantage of this long campaign period,
Well,
doing exactly what they ought not to have been
great
doing.
point, but let's keep going. Keep talking, Mr. Chaudhry. While the internet may be static, I'm sure we'll still be able to hear you. So let's try that. As you were saying, during that campaign period, the Fiji First Party, please continue.
Yes, it kept campaigning at public expense, dishing out freebies to people, and which of course they shouldn't have been doing. Once the campaign period opened, they should have gone in a caretaker mode and not used public funds to campaign for their political party. But we are over all that now, and I think we are looking ahead. Elections are now 3 weeks away, barely 3 weeks away, and we are all focused on
Yes.
that. There's a lot of work to do, a lot of catching up to
Okay.
do.
Now, what effect has the Electoral Act had on campaigning? Has this placed a greater burden on how the campaign has been conducted?
It certainly has been disruptive because uh, several times opposition parties were reported to FICAC. Fiji First Party was very quick to lay complaints with the supervisor of elections, and he was equally very quick to refer them to FICAC. So I think the whole, as far as our on this is, it has been rather disruptive, but we've overcome all those. Nothing serious has happened to any of the opposition political parties. Most of these complaints were frivolous. They ought not to have been made in the first place. But I think this was a strategy which Fiji First used to unsettle opposition parties. I'm glad that it didn't work. Are you able to hear me?
Keep going, Mr. Chaudhry. Our
Yes.
viewers tell us they can hear you loud and clear. So you
Yes.
said it was,
So
yes,
yes. These laws, as you know, are made up to the very last moment, and some laws were also made after the campaign period had opened. And This was all done to disrupt opposition parties' campaigns, but we've overcome all that. And I think what I'd like to do now is to focus on the elections itself and
great.
do as best as we can.
All right, wonderful. Now, let me talk about the Fiji Labour Party manifesto that was launched just this last week. First of all, how would you describe the launch of your party manifesto?
I was pleased with the launch ceremony. We had a good crowd, a very enthusiastic crowd, and they really responded to the manifesto, to our vision, to our promises to set things right. And it's a good manifesto, and I think it is full of ideas. It is innovative, and we are confident that it is popular with the people. So far, we've had very good reactions to that.
I will take you through your manifesto today. We'll dissect pieces from that document. However, under the Labour's guiding principles, It is stated, and I quote, "The democratic systems that safeguard effective running of a country have broken down in Fiji. This has led to social and economic failures that have destabilized the country." End of quote. Now, this is a damning statement when one looks at democratic systems. Please tell us what has happened in Fiji and how has it come to this?
But of course, democratic governance was destroyed in Fiji. It happened several times, as you know. If we go back to 1987, we've lost democracy on 4 occasions. Our constitutions have been abrogated, and democratically elected governments have been ousted. So we have had this experiment with um, democracy being replaced by autocracy. And the last occasion, of course, was in 2006. And in 2009, when the constitution was abrogated, we moved to autocratic rule. And we've stayed there for a long time until 2014, when the elections took place again. But nothing changed after the 2014 elections. Although we had a parliament, we had elections and all that, but on the ground, on the surface, and the governance issues, nothing changed. We remained an autocratic state, and we still are. There is no genuine democracy. We all know that power is concentrated in just 1 or 2 people. And this is the problem that this country faces. And we hope that these elections will bring about the change that we are all clamoring for, to replace autocracy with democracy.
All right. Now, may I please request that you briefly share your Fiji Labour Party's guiding principles by expressing the key points? We will, of course, be looking at the key components during our discussions today.
Well, our guiding principles are as follows. Let me read them out. They're not very lengthy. 1, recognition and protection of fundamental political and civil rights of citizens, freedom of expression, and a just legal system. 2, elimination of discrimination and exploitation on grounds of class, sex, religion, age, and political affiliation. 3, abolition of poverty and achievement of an equitable distribution of income, wealth, and opportunities. 4, provision and maintenance of full and meaningful employment. 5, proper management of Fiji's resources and protection of the environment. 6, redistribution of political and economic power so that all members of society have the opportunity to participate in the institutions and processes which determine. 7, promotion of democratic socialization of industry, production, distribution, and exchange in order to eliminate antisocial exploitative practices. 8, maintenance, creation of, and support for a competitive, non-monopolistic private sector. 9, engagement and support for local small-scale businesses, farming and cooperative ventures. 10, fostering a national identity for our people. 11, recognition and encouragement of the right of labor to organize for the protection and advancement of its objective. And lastly, application of industrial democracy to increase opportunities for people to work in satisfying, healthy, and humane conditions, and to participate in and increase their control over decision-making processes affecting them. These are our guiding principles, and this is our mandate. And governance will have to be in accordance with these guiding principles, and they are all democratic principles. It holds governments accountable to the people. These principles require you to serve the people.
All right. Now, let us address the state of the nation today. Mr. Chaudhry, what are the key issues that people raise with you when you are out on your campaign trail?
Well, cost of living is the key issue. It's just too much for them.
Hmm.
It's unbearable, and people on ordinary incomes are finding it difficult to afford the basic necessities of life with the incomes that they earn. Wages are low. There is a huge shortage of social housing, high levels of unemployment, particularly youth unemployment. Educated youth are without jobs. There is neglect of the rural sector. There is a drift of people moving out of rural into urban areas, creating problems already existing in the urban areas, adding to those problems. And of course, the nation is under debt to a level which is very worrying, unsustainable debt level. We have a civil service which is demoralized, which is heavily politicized, and our people's interests are not being served. So the list goes on. In poor health services, there are problems in our education sector. These are the main issues which people talk about and are very, very upset about.
All right. I will come back in just a moment. We'll take a small break. I want to play a Labour Party message, come back, and we'll look at how Labour intends to reshape the economy. As I said, we will dissect parts of your manifesto. It's an exciting document that I've read, but we'll take you through that. We'll just have a small wee break right now.
Fiji Labour Party was formed in 1985 to give a voice to the workers. They formed government in 1987 under Timothy Babandra, and again in 1999 under Mahendra Chaudhry. It was Labour that created 9.6% economic growth, the biggest economic growth Fiji has ever had, with increases in sugarcane and tourism, low inflation, and a strong Fijian dollar. It was Labour that removed VAT and essentials, introduced a student loan scheme, increased free education to Form 5 level, and reduced water and electricity rates. Imagine if Labour were given their full term in office.
All right. Well, that was a plug for your Labour Party, an advertisement of what could have been, I guess. We'll talk about that in a while as well. Mr. Chaudhry, let me address some of the key features of your 2022 manifesto presentation, Labour's Vision for Fiji. Let us start by addressing the economy. Now, you have been credited as being an astute Minister for Finance in the past. Your manifesto states that in reshaping the economy, the nation must learn to live within our means. What did you mean by this?
It's fairly basic that we must live within our means. We must produce, ideally, we must produce more than what we consume, and we must build local capacity and output where our strengths are, and this is particularly in agriculture. We must control non-essential imports. Whatever we can manufacture locally, we should do that. We should look at our sugar industry, where it is today, where it was at one point in time, supporting the economy. What happened to it? Why did it decline to a point where it is now threatened? Its future is now threatened. Uh, and for all this, we need to create capacity locally. what has been happening is that we have lost our self-reliance. We are now depending on overseas investors, overseas contractors,
All right.
and
So, what will be Labour's first
overseas
step
personnel, even in the civil
to
service.
economic recovery?
Yes. And this is to increase capacity, to increase production levels, to export more, cut back on imports, and follow a well managed economic policy, particularly in terms of outflow of foreign currency and controlling imports and managing our debt level. These are key problems that we face. That's why our economy is where it is today. We have been forced to borrow because we have been living beyond our means. We have been consuming more. And to pay for all that, we've had to borrow and incur debt levels with high budget deficits. So we have to now reverse all that and create capacity, create productivity within what we have and within our strengths, try and achieve an economy which will sustain itself, which will increase our self-reliance and lead us to growth.
So, having said that, what will be Labour's first step to economic recovery? I mean, in the road to Labour's economic recovery, how will it create meaningful production and lift standards of living for all?
Well, as I said, we must build local capacity and output in our strengths, agriculture, and especially in sugar. Declining sectors under Fiji first, such as sugar, dairy, rice, fruits, we must resurrect these because there are opportunities there. We had a very thriving dairy industry at one point in time. Rice, sugar, these have all declined. Some have disappeared. We've got to bring them back. And processing and manufacturing are vital to add value. We've got to look at processing and manufacturing because these will create jobs, and this will also mean that the surplus that we have will be processed for both local consumption as well as for export. And we've got to improve agricultural infrastructure, invest in research and development to support all year-round farming. We've said that the alternative lies in agriculture. We are an agricultural country, and we must now achieve the full potential of agriculture. We must boost our marine resources and forestry for local consumption and local ownership. And we must have tariff levels which will sustain local industries from imports. And in manufacturing, we should look at joint venture between local companies and overseas companies, particularly countries that we are exporting to, or we are importing from rather. And this was working well under the Mara government. We had a policy of import substitution, but unfortunately, this was not followed through. We have a policy of trickle-down economics. I think it doesn't work. Trickle-down economics doesn't work. It's got to be from bottom up and not from up down, from top to down. So, producing more at home and for local consumption as well as for exports, better manage our imports and outflow of foreign currency, pay down our foreign loans as required. And yes, these are the measures that we have proposed in our manifesto.
Now, as the whole nation knows, Fiji's debt levels, hovering around 10 billion to 12 billion, some say, is a huge, huge worry for voters as well as for future generations. What plans does the Fiji Labour Party have to reduce the burden of debt?
Foreign debt, particularly, what we are intending to do in our budget that we prepared, the alternate budget, we are not borrowing any money from overseas. We're not borrowing in foreign currency. All our needs, all our deficit in the budget will be funded by local capital. We feel that there is local market has the capacity to fund the budget deficit. And so in our first budget, or the alternate budget that we've proposed with the manifesto, there is no foreign borrowing. That is the first step. And to reduce debt levels, as I had said earlier, we need to better control imports and manage outflow of foreign currency. And in this way, gradually, we will reduce foreign debt, and we can also borrow locally to pay off foreign debts earlier than maturity, where we find that these debts are expensive. We need to do that, have a policy of repaying these debts ahead of time. So these are some of the measures that we'll take to reduce the debt levels. But the key answer to this is it can only be reduced. We can only reduce our debt level by producing more, by earning more, and so that we have the capacity to repay these debts and reduce the debt levels.
I like what you say about producing more. And down the program, I assure you, I will discuss some of those incentives that your party has in trying to reinvigorate the local production. So we'll come to that. But at this juncture, Mr. Chaudhry, let me now turn our discussions to another very important area for the whole of Fiji, and that is the provision of good quality healthcare. I love the headlines in your manifesto, which reads, and I quote, "All our citizens, rich or poor, deserve the best healthcare." Now, before we dissect your party's healthcare plan, is there any blame to be apportioned to anyone for the demise in Fiji's healthcare provisions? I mean, let us call a spade a spade. Where does the fault lie squarely and fairly?
Well, I think the fault lies in the lack of political will to really come to grips with the problem and fix it. Now, Fiji's health problems not new. Let me tell you that it goes as far back as 1980. The first inquiry into Fiji's health services was conducted in 1980 under the Mara government. There was a report in the Fiji Times one Saturday morning, about drug shortage in our hospitals. And there were other reports of deficiencies in the medical services, or particularly hospital services. And these issues were highlighted by the then president of the Fiji Medical Association, Dr. Karam Singh. When this erupted in the news media, Ratumara moved to appoint an inquiry into Fiji's health services. This inquiry was chaired by Dr. James Maraj, who was at that time Vice Chancellor of the University of the South Pacific. The inquiry produced a very comprehensive report, but unfortunately, successive governments did not take action to run through the report and implement its recommendations. And this is why I've said earlier on that lack of political will to come to grips with the problem and do something about it. So if blame is to be laid, that's where I'll lay the blame, lack of political will, because people have been crying out for better health services for They've been pointing out about drug shortages and so many other things. I need not go into it. It's very common when people talk about it. But successive governments have simply just let it carry on. And they couldn't care less, I suppose, because those in authority did not really worry about the quality of healthcare or hospital services available to people of Fiji, because they were generally getting these. They were flying away to either Singapore or Australia or some other places and getting themselves fixed. So really, it was not a question of them being worried about it. And this is very true. This is very true, because if there was a caring government, a compassionate government, they would have done something about it long ago. So if the blame has to be put, it has got to be put on our politicians. It cannot be put on our health workers, on our doctors, on our nurses who are working under very trying conditions, trying to do their best. I think we cannot lay the blame on them. So that's where the blame lies, Shashi.
All right. Your manifesto outlines the Labour Party's plans for quality healthcare. Now, you've discussed a plan for private sector in health in that manifesto. What is this going to be?
Well, I think we've got to now think outside the box. We've got to bring private sector expertise to support the government system. The government system has not worked. It needs to be supported. And what we intend to do, if elected to government, is to bring in private sector expertise, particularly in terms of providing ancillary services, which are very lacking in the public system, as well as in managing our hospitals better. And I think there is also to build capacity in the private sector, healthcare facilities, so that it supplements the public system. And this is why we have proposed a program which we think would be similar to the Medicare in Australia. We are still considering this. And of course, for that, we need to have a national health insurance scheme. It has to be funded somehow. But all these needs to be done. We cannot just stick to a system which hasn't worked for decades. We've got to bring in innovation. We've got to bring in ideas and learn from how these things are better done in our neighboring countries. So this is what we propose to do. And hopefully improve the health services and give quality health care to our people. Now, that's on the hospital side. But there's the other side to it is primary and preventive health care. This is to prevent people from getting sick. As you know, we have a very high incidence of NCDs.
Yes.
And something has to be done about that. Unfortunately, nothing much has been done about that except that people talk about it. And the authorities have not moved to deal with it in a proactive manner. If you look at our manifesto, we have suggested, we've made a number of proposals how we will create awareness within the society of the great need to live a healthy lifestyle, avoid getting sick, and we will invest heavily in this, because I think, as they say, prevention is better than cure. And if you put money to prevent people from getting sick, and this starts right from home, in schools, at the workplace. The media has a role to play in this, in creating this awareness amongst the people. So that's what we propose to do, to create awareness, and at the same time improve and upgrade services that we can. But I think the long-term solution to this is that people learn to live healthier lifestyles, and it will reduce the state of health problems considerably.
All right.
Yes, Shashi.
I have this handicap that whilst viewers may be able to hear everything you say, when we have this internet issue, I just simply cannot hear anything that you're saying. So I've got to jump ahead at times. And if you feel I haven't covered something, please bring me back into line. We'll just have to work together with each other. Now, you were talking about NCDs and the emphasis that needs to be placed on awareness. Are there any plans for the mental health sector of the community as well?
Yes, yes. We think that there is a need for that. We have to upgrade that. At the moment, we have the St. Giles Hospital, which I think is under-resourced. I think we need some professional advice there, a lot of upgrading. And the problem is that we also lack professionally qualified people in our health sector. And we will need to bring in people with expertise to help us, guide us to better our services in the mental health and fight against NCDs. But we'll do our best, as I said, when we get in there, then you can really gauge the depth of the problems.
Indeed. Certainly. Now,
deal with it
let us look at
we all want to improve health
staffing of the
services.
healthcare sector, Mr. Chaudhry. For far too long, we have had trained, skilled medical personnel leave their jobs in Fiji and come to places like Australia and New Zealand for work purposes. What plans does the Labour Party have for the very hardworking doctors and nurses' retention of medical staff in Fiji?
Yes, there are frustrations which they experience and eventually leave. I think these are related to salaries and working conditions, the scope of professional development, the opportunities for that, they're lacking. Overall, the manner in which the health services are managed, lack of inclusivity in terms of our of hospital staff and doctors and nurses. They are not given the autonomy, the authority. So yes, there are frustrations, professional problems. We need to look at all that to increase, boost their morale. I think at the moment they're very, very demoralized for reasons that I've explained. All these will need to be done so that we have a contented workforce. We've got to create conditions for that, give them their due. It's an important area, and we must recognize that they have special talents and that they are worth retaining. And for that, we have to create the right conditions to keep them in Fiji rather than losing them to countries abroad. Yes, Shashi.
All right. Have a little break, Mr. Chaudhry. I'll come back to you and discuss your policy on youth. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point on Facebook Live and on YouTube. Our chief guest today is the leader of the Fiji Labour Party, candidate number 385, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry. Please like and follow the SSTP page so that you can get instant notifications of all posts on our page. To those posting likes and emojis and particularly the stars, thank you very much for your stars and your likes and your emojis. Mr. Chaudhry, when I read your party's manifesto, there seems to be a breath of fresh air in that document when I see the programmed outline for the youth of Fiji. Now, having a well thought out policy plan for the youth is hope for the future because it is with the youth where Fiji's future lies. Firstly, sir, before we dissect the youth policies, why have you placed so much of emphasis on the youth of Fiji?
Well, I think every country has to do that. We've got to. They are our future leaders, and they need to be looked after, and we must have policies. They are our workforce. They are the people who are educated people who will, of course, contribute to economic growth for the country. So they must be happy, they must be satisfied that the conditions are there for their development, that when they graduate, they have a job, that they have opportunities to advance in life, have a family of their own, have a house of their own, and live a life which is meaningful. Right now, the situation is very, very sad because there is very high youth unemployment in Fiji. Officially, this is put at about 25%, but I think it's much more. We have youths who have graduated and who are looking for jobs, but are unable to find jobs. Some have been looking for jobs for quite some time, unable to obtain jobs to suit their qualifications. Some of them have to take jobs which really are very, very low paying jobs. So we have a plan for the youth, how to utilize their talents, their potential, how can they make a contribution to the economy. Unless you bring them into the mainstream of the economy, nothing will happen. And so our job policy on youth is all on that. First of all, the employment for them, jobs. I think what they want is jobs, jobs, and jobs, because otherwise they find life very, very. This is what our emphasis is on. How can we possibly make life rewarding for our youth? And that they have potential. So we have suggestions in our manifesto in terms of using their creative talents in different areas, in different facets. We're talking about establishing an Academy of Arts, Culture, and Sports. I think we have talents there, which will be quite attractive for the youth, and they can make good earnings out of that. Their talents, their skills, but at the moment, because of a lack of anything which will promote these talents and make them marketable, there is nothing happening. So our youths are dissatisfied about that.
Your Labour Party manifesto has made a key commitment to set up a new Ministry for Tertiary and Vocational Training. Please tell us what this will do and how soon can this be implemented if you form government?
Yes, of course, we have got to put special focus on this. As I said, employment is a huge problem as far as our youths are concerned. So we need to do this tertiary education and vocational training. The training of youths for jobs was affected when we closed down the vocational training and apprenticeship schemes and all that some time back. And we need to because we started this vocational training, put money into it. The Fiji First said, but then a year or two later, this was all closed down. And if you go back in history, you will know that there was a Fiji Institute of Technology, which was specifically created for technical training, vocational training. There was the Fiji National Training Council. A special legislation was brought in under the Mara government for training for industry. And this was later on subsumed by the Fiji National University. So this really created a lot of problems as far as the proper functioning and continuity of this kind of training for industry and for jobs was concerned. And we are suffering because of that, because all this was done to take away the autonomy from the specially created institutions for vocational training and education, that we have a big lacuna in terms of technical training. Now in Fiji, you will find that we lack skilled people to service the industries in a number of disciplines. And those that have emigrated. We haven't been able to fill the gaps because these programs were discontinued. So there is a lot of problems that were created, and you have to fill those gaps, and that's why you need a special ministry of tertiary education and vocational training to come to grips with this and to move things so that we have a skilled workforce that will contribute to national development. At the moment, we are lacking in this. We used to, at one point in time, have all this, but then over the years, as I said, because of these developments, things changed, and we lost all those skills that we had, and we need to get back to those days.
That's a good program that you've outlined. Now, the Tertiary Education Loan Scheme, TELS, has been in the news a lot. TELS has become a huge burden on many families. What does your manifesto say about reducing the burden of TELS?
Well, TELS is actually, it was started by the Labour government in 1999. We called it the Students' Loan Scheme. At that time, those who could not access scholarships were given students' loans. So this eventually developed into TELS. It is a huge problem right now with students owing something like $500 million. What we have suggested in our own manifesto is that we will reduce TELS by 50% for those students who complete their studies and graduate within the prescribed time. Mm-hmm. Now, for those doing courses that will be contributing to the national economy in areas of need, special skills, they will have further reductions. So, and then to assist further, the students who are coming from poor families, they will be supplemented, the TELS will be supplemented by scholarships. These scholarships were there before they were taken away and substituted and replaced by toppers. We will bring those programs back under the affirmative action program to assist communities, challenged communities which need to be assisted. And in this way, we feel that students will have a lesser burden on them in terms of. And now, we've also said we'll restore USP grants, and we'll make it a condition of these grants that the universities review students' fees, because we feel we have done some work on this, and we feel that the fees levels are rather high vis-a-vis the incomes of the generally, and fees levels have to be reviewed, and we think that there is a case for reducing these fees. So in a number of ways, we have proposed measures which will bring down the burden. What actually Fiji first did was to have moved the burden from the government to the students. As I was saying earlier on, that before TELS, introduced by Fiji first government, we had scholarship schemes, full scholarships, partial scholarships, and all that. And there was over about 4,000 or 5,000 people, students, who were able to access these scholarships, full scholarships, partial scholarships. These were removed, replaced by a toppers scheme with only 600 students qualifying for that. And even that was not fully subscribed. So to rest of the students, they were told, well, look, you go and borrow. You borrow from TELS and you pay your way through. So that was a great disservice to students accessing tertiary education. Government moved that burden, Fiji first government moved that burden from themselves to the students. And this is why we have this huge debt accumulation. I think the previous system was much better, and we need to review it and bring it back so that students in need are really assisted.
Now, I understand that your manifesto also addresses the increase in TEL's eligibility quota. Please tell us more on this. Why is this necessary?
I think it is necessary because there are more students wanting to access tertiary education. I believe the budget has been cut back. So all we are saying is that we will make more money available, but we'll have a reformed system. We'll have a reformed system. We'll bring back scholarships. We'll get the fees reduced, hopefully. And so this will give opportunities to more students to access tertiary education. And I think we also need to take a holistic look at our tertiary education system, particularly at what level should this be, whether we should look at the universities serving the needs of the nation, rather than the other way around, that people are free to take any courses they like and get these qualifications at public expense or whatever. I think we need to gear this system to serve the needs of the nation, where we need the skills, where it will be to the benefit both of the individual as well as the country, because it is expensive. Tertiary education is expensive, and you need to make the best use of it. So this is what there has to be a reform there as well in terms of policies with regard to accessibility as well as the direction of tertiary education in this country.
Now, let us look at the education system. You have called for better outcomes for education and have, in fact, stated that the entire education system should be reviewed. Firstly, Mr. Chaudhry, why have you called for an entire review of the system?
I think we need to look at our education system from time to time to see whether it is relevant, whether it is modern, whether it serves the needs of the society, and what are its objectives, and for the citizenry as well as for the nation, because that's the most important sector which molds our younger people in terms of their thinking, in terms of their priorities. So we need to review our education system periodically. Now, the last review that was conducted was in 2000. That was done by my government. When we came in, I was advised by our Minister for Education that we need to have a good look, a holistic look at our education system. So we appointed a education commission in 2000. But nothing has happened since then. It's 22 years ago. I think it's time for a new look, for a review. There are so many problems in the education ministry, as you know. There's constant interference by the government, by the minister. There's been disputes with teachers. The teachers have been demoralized. Their employment terms and conditions have been changed. From permanent employment, they were moved to short-term employment contracts, 3-year contracts, 2-year contracts, and they have got a number of salary and working condition problems which have not been properly dealt with. They haven't had a pay increase since 2012. So there are huge problems. And if you have a demoralized teaching service, what do you expect from them? This is why our standard of our education is falling. Exam pass rates are falling, and all that. We've got to fix that. Now, so we're looking at appointing a commission which will improve the curriculum and make it more representative of a modern egalitarian society, decentralize governance for decision making and delegation of responsibilities, improve the level of access to education for those in remote areas, the poor, and people with disabilities. We need to provide better salaries, working conditions, and career prospects for teachers and other education workers. The review will outline the comprehensive reshaping of the education sector, which will define Labour's policy on education. We need experts to do this, and we need to renew our education system.
A short while ago, you mentioned the establishment of a Fijian Academy of Sports, Arts and Culture. Now, your manifesto spells out that art is vital to national identity. Please tell us more on why this initiative is important.
Well, our youth have a lot of talent. They're good at sports, some are good at music, some are good at arts, they can be very good actors. Now, we've got to develop those talents to their fullest potential. There is no institution there to do that. So it's a step ahead in servicing our youth, in giving them an opportunity to develop those talents, because these talents are marketable. They can earn them a lot of money. It can put Fiji on the global stage. We can have very good musicians. We have very good actors. We have got very sportsmen and women. So they need guidance, proper guidance and direction. And this is why, and this is for the youth to develop their potential and talents to the fullest. And I think that is doing a great service to the youth of this country, men and women both. Because you don't get to see, you will not get these at the universities and all that. So the universities have done their job and all that. You need to develop this further. So we need these institutions. And I think this should have been done long ago, and it would have solved a lot of problems of the youth today, because they can become self-employed, they can become, people in their own right, earning incomes and adding and contributing to the economy. So we must give them the opportunity. We must give them the assistance and the help that they need to do that.
Now, Mr. Chaudhry, there is, as I said, a breath of fresh air in your youth policy initiatives. Now, how important is the voice of the youth? I mean, how does someone harness the young of today and shape their future towards good government policies, the environment, good, open, and transparent governance? How do we get the voice of the youth out in the open?
Well, I think it goes back to the education system, right? What are you teaching your children, right from primary school? How are you shaping their minds? Are they being taught about democracy? Are they being taught about good governance? Are they being taught about being good citizens who will contribute to the nation and build a meaningful life for themselves? So it begins there. Well, it begins right from home, and then of course we're going to go to schools, and this is where they are molded. And I think our youth, if it is done in a proper way, of course, it gives them great leadership potential, the right values as good citizens. And this is not happening in our schools. I don't think they're being taught about democratic values. They're not. If you look at that in our schools, in the history, Fijian history, there's nothing about the coups. Students were never told about these things. It's hidden from them because they don't want these things exposed. What happened to this country? And I think we need to correct all this. These people need to be told, and that they're of the right values. They've got to be taught about democracies. Many things that we see happening would not happen if the education system was right. If they were given these lessons, if they're told about these things, I think a lot of these things wouldn't have happened. It would improve race relations. It would improve better understanding. It would also assist government in that people would understand better the obligations of the government and how government works. All these things are very necessary so that whoever it is, our young men and women, have a very solid background in terms of understanding these things. They are more important than abstract subjects, which really you graduate in, but really it doesn't come into your daily life. So I think we need to look at that, and this is one of the reasons why we are talking about the Education Commission, that they should look at it, a meaningful education which will have add value to your daily lives and as good citizens.
Before we move on to our next subject, Mr. Chaudhry, is there anything you would like to say to the youth of Fiji on your plans for them generally?
Yes, I think I'd just want to say to them that we are there for you. Labour has always placed great value on the youth and their potential. Mind you, we were the only party in 1997 Constitution, and the 1997 Constitution was being debated in Parliament. The commission, the Reeves Commission, which had done the Constitution, had recommended that voting age be dropped from 21 to 18. Labour Party had made a submission on that. And when that was being discussed, there were other parties in Parliament at that time, the NFP and SVT, headed by Rambuka. These parties did not support that. They wanted voting age to remain at 21. There were two issues on which the Fiji Labour Party disagreed with the 1997 Constitution as it was promulgated. One was this, that the voting age be lowered to 18. And the second issue was on communal versus open seats. The Reeves recommendation was to have a 70-member House with 45 open seats and only 25 communal seats, because what we were doing was to move away from communal politics. And they had recommended that more seats be open seats and less number of seats be allocated for communal seats, and over a period of time, communal seats should be phased out. But what actually happened was that both Mr. Reddy and Mr. Rambuka did not agree with that. They turned the ratio around to 45 communal and 25 open, going back to entrenching communal politics. So these two issues, one was to do with the youth, the other was to remove, or reduce communal representation in the House. So this is what I was saying, that we have always stood for principles. We can't be saying one thing and doing another. When we're talking about moving away from communal politics, well, do it. When we're talking about doing something for the youth, well, give them the opportunity. Why take away 3 years away their voting rights?
Sure.
So we stood by the youth, and I'm glad that we are now they're voting at age 18.
All right.
So we have a lot
Yep.
of time for youth. Yeah.
All right. As I was saying, let's take a small break. Let's hear a message from the Fiji Labour Party. We'll come
Yes.
back and we'll discuss Indigenous rights and land issues, Mr. Chaudhry. Let's take a little break.
Fiji Labour Party was formed in 1985 to give voice to the workers. They formed government in 1987 under Timothy Babandra, and again in 1999 under Mahendra Chaudhry. And tourism, low inflation, and a strong Fijian dollar. It was Labour that removed VAT on essentials, introduced a student loan scheme, increased fee-free education to Form 5 level, and reduced water and electricity rates. Imagine if Labour were given their full term in office.
All right. That was a small plug for the Fiji Labour Party in terms of their past achievements. Mr. Chaudhry, I would now like to change the topic to discuss Indigenous rights and the issue of land. Firstly, what are Labour's current views on improving the lives of the Indigenous community in Fiji?
We have always said, some people have labeled us as an Indian party. And I am referring here to the Prime Minister, who called the Labour Party an Indian party. The Labour Party is not an Indian party. It never was. And since 1985, our first Prime Minister was Dr. Timothy Babandra. Now, we couldn't have been an Indian party. We won government twice, in 87 and in 1999. If we were just an Indian party, we couldn't have one government. We had the support of the Indigenous community. Enough support to put us in government. We have always cared for the Indigenous community, and I've always, as a person, said that until such time as we are able to get them to enter the mainstream of commerce and in this country, bring them into the mainstream of the economy, we will continue to have instability. Now, to have real stability in this country, we must bring them into the mainstream of things. Unfortunately, this hasn't happened. This hasn't happened. And under the Fijian-led governments, under the Indigenous-led governments, all these years, we've only had 1 year of an Indian as head of this government, Fijian government. Now, when we came in, let me talk about this. When we came in, the first thing we did was to reassure the Indigenous community that all their rights were intact. These rights were protected by the 1997 Constitution, and these rights will be respected. But of course, there were other people who were going around sending other messages. They had other intentions. Nonetheless, to get back to the subject, the first thing that we did was talked about how to assist them with the land, because land is an economic asset. It has to be put to work to earn an income and to assist them economically. So I sent a delegation of chiefs from each of the provinces to Malaysia, and this was with the approval of the Great Council of Chiefs, to look at how the indigenous land there was being developed for commercial purposes, for agricultural purposes, so that they could have some ideas and then come back and see what we could do here. Was to win their confidence. That look, take a look there. They are earning a lot of income from land which has been cleared and which is now producing crops, and they're benefiting from it. So it's land use. When Dr. Mahendra talked about a land use commission, it was misinterpreted by our detractors at that time to say, well, they were trying to grab land. It was nothing of the sort. This was all propaganda. So yes, the upliftment of the indigenous community is dear to us, and a lot must be done. A lot has to be done because, as I said, previous governments have not done enough for the indigenous community. You just
Now, sorry, go on.
What we hear now is Fiji First is saying, well, what we will do is to give some approval to subdivide it into commercial lots and all that sort of thing. Well, it's coming a bit too late. It's coming a bit too late, and these are all related to these elections anyway. But much more is needed. So we, as I said, we have in our manifesto said that we will help them with developing their land, getting them into the mainstream of commerce, facilitating agricultural development and all that, so that this will indirectly benefit them and also make them partners in this rural revival. We also, when we were in 1999, we wanted to assist all the villages to develop, and at that time there were over 700 villages, and we were preparing profiles on each of the village to see what state it was in and what could be done to uplift the lifestyles in the villages, to improve housing, sanitation, and job opportunities, etc. So yes, we are all for uplifting the indigenous community.
Now, here on SSTP, I have raised in the past the disparities when the Itoke landowners lose the use of their lands because of, say, entering into long-term leases. They do not pay a decent lease commensurate with modern times. What can you say about your party's initiatives about indigenous lands, particularly lease monies, etc., the disparity therein?
Well, our concern has mainly been on agricultural leases. Commercial leases, industrial leases, housing leases, they are for they can be negotiated at individual level, at enterprise level, and of course the landowners must get the best advice, and it must be in their interests that whatever agreement is made in respect of whatever leases are issued must ensure the TLTV must ensure that the landowners are not done under. Now, I move to the agricultural leases. In terms of agricultural leases, these are governed by Agricultural Landlords and Tenant Act. Now, the maximum period of lease which is now granted is 30-year agricultural leases. The rent is kept at 6% of the unimproved capital value of the land, as per the Agricultural Landlord and Tenants Act. Now, the landowners are saying that it's not enough. The tenants are saying that it's too much. We've got to find a solution. So what we are proposing is that the cap be increased to 10%, from 6% to 10%, and that the government will pay the 4% difference so that the farmer is not burdened with that cost. So it's a win-win situation for both. The landlord gets it, an increase, the farmer stays where he is, and the state pays the difference, because I think it is a fair expense, fair public expense, because of the economic returns that the nation is getting from that land. So there's nothing wrong with paying that extra 4% for local farmers who leased land. Now, the other issue is in terms of the duration of the lease. 30-year leases are not considered adequate enough. With farmers, it doesn't take care of even one generation. And so there is a lack of investment by farmers because of the short duration of the leases. So what we are suggesting is that the lease duration for agricultural land be increased to 50 years. 50 years, of course, with the approval of the Matangali, with the approval of the landowners. But there is this question of, in terms of if you are investing in agriculture, we're saying that our strength lies in agriculture, that if we increase agricultural production, the economy will improve, it'll create more opportunities, and therefore the investment will only increase if there is sufficient security of tenure and the duration of the leases. These have to be examined. One of the reasons why there has been a lack of investment is perhaps because of this, what I'm pointing out. So, yes, these are our plans that in terms of assisting the indigenous community and also at the same time the tenants, because I think that policies there have to be fair both to the landowners as well as to the tenants.
All right. Now, I understand that you have plans to introduce tertiary level scholarships that will benefit Itoke students. Can you please elaborate on this?
Yes, under the Toppers scheme, the indigenous community were left out. And this was a fair grievance raised by them, that they were missing out on that. Particularly, a lot of their children live in areas which are rather remote, whereas other communities are well within the reach of the urban areas, or live in urban areas themselves. So yes, what we have said is that we'll bring back the affirmative action programs to assist people who need to be assisted. There's nothing wrong with that. And if we do that, I'm sure that many of the indigenous students who are currently lacking in such support will be able to access tertiary education.
Okay. Mr. Chaudhry, let me just turn the clock back for a few seconds. There were two coups that deposed democratically elected Labour governments in Fiji in 87 and 2000 rather, and each time these coups were carried out, they were carried out in the name of indigenous people, for the advancement, they said, of the Itoke people. However, the truth is there in black and white for all to see. The fact is that the life of the ordinary indigenous persons continues to decline daily in today's Fiji. Sir, do you ever reflect and contemplate on what could have been?
Yes, indeed. From time to time, and even people are saying that. People are saying that if you were allowed to do your full term in 1999, Fiji would have been a different place today. And I say, yes, indeed. We had a vision, and what we did in 12 months really proved the point because we were moving ahead. People were happy. We were managing the economy very well. The businesses were doing very well. Tourism was doing very well. We had a record sugar production, and cost of living was cheap. The interest rates were brought down on housing loans. At that time, the housing loan interest rates were around 11%, and we had made a promise to the people that the housing authority interest rates would be dropped to 6%. And we did that. We reduced the cost of or the tariff on electricity and on telecom. So we were very much a people-oriented party, but we were a responsible government. We were not making promises, wild promises, and not looking at the sustainability or viability of such promises in terms of national economy and other issues. So we were a responsible government, but a progressive government, a people's government. And this is not happening today. This is not happening today. And we all can see that. You look at what has happened in these last 15, 16 years. Our sugar industry, where it is today. Our rural sector, where it is today. Our health services, where it is today. Employment. Our water supply. You know, PWD has been demolished. Water authority.
Yeah,
We're going to deal with that later. We're going to deal with that later, I know. So, you know, these are the things that have happened, which wouldn't have happened under a Labour government. This country would have been very high up today.
Having said that, don't you think that your Fiji Labour Party has been denied the opportunity to carry out its vision for the empowerment of the Indigenous community? There were set plans to bring the Indigenous community's lives into a better life. But don't you think, you've been denied that opportunity?
Indeed, indeed. And the people who accused us of taking the rights of Indigenous community away and all that, I wanted to point out that in my government of 1999, out of 18 cabinet ministers, 12 were Indigenous Fijians. Only 6 were Indians. And so there was no way that anything would have gone past the cabinet, which was not for the benefit of the Indigenous community. And, if we continue with this kind of propaganda, if we bring in race every time, one race and put the other race to disadvantage, we'll never get anywhere. But unfortunately, this is happening at the moment, playing one against the other. We're not looking at the national interest. We're looking at our own self-interest and making accusations, unfounded accusations against people who are trying to do some good for the country.
Okay. Now, before we leave the Indigenous community and matters affecting them, I've read that Labour intends to increase funding for Indigenous land development and the Itoke Institute of Language and Culture. Please tell me, why is this important in your manifesto?
It is important because it is for the good of the national economy and for the Indigenous people. They have this asset. They lack capital to develop it. Now we must assist them, and in a meaningful way, in a substantial way, not just by token contribution. Well, we'll give you $5 million or $10 million to subdivide that parcel of land. That's not the way we look at things. We take a holistic approach. So we will increase the funding for land development in productive areas, which will create employment on a continuing basis, which will give incomes to them on a continuing basis. Not that you subdivide a land, sell it, and that's it. It's a one-off thing. No, we don't believe in one-off programs. We want to have a program which will continue and which will keep giving benefits to the people. So it is development. And That is one, as I said, that we're talking about commercial agricultural farms. So this is one area in which I think the landowners will benefit substantially if we're able to get that off the ground. It will be a real plus for them, because it will, aside from giving them income by way of land rent and all that, it will bring land which is currently in bush. It will become productive, and it will be there. So it will be an asset which will be worth many times more than what it is today.
All right. Mr. Chaudhry, have a little break, have a sip of water, sir, if you need to. I'll come back and I'll discuss agriculture, forestry, and fisheries with you, whether these are still sustainable in Fiji's landscape. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest today is leader of the Fiji Labour Party and candidate number 385, Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry. Please like and follow the SSTP page if you can. Please share the page as well. And to those sending your emojis and your stars, thank you very much as well. Now, Mr. Chaudhry, it seems by any standard of measure that over the last 16 odd years, there has been a total shift in focus away from some of our traditional agricultural, forestry, and fisheries-based local sector. These days, the focus seems to be on tourism, and money is being sent to Fiji by family members abroad to assist their next of kin. Firstly, let me ask you, sir, if my analysis of the introduction was correct. Has there been a shift in focus?
Yes, there has been a shift in focus. Yes, indeed.
All right. Now, what then is Labour's economic recovery plan? How do you go about reviving the agricultural sector, sir?
Yes, but before that, let me say that we are not against tourism. I want to make that very clear. I think tourism is needed, and we are getting good income from that, but it serves the needs of only one section of the society. It's only 40% of GDP. But it can also be developed, and we've got ideas of how to develop tourism with more local participation and local ownership.
Sure.
I think that needs to be looked at. Now, in terms of agriculture, yes, we've said that we are proposing that under our program, Sustainable Agriculture, that National Agri-Distribution Initiative, which will encourage our farmers to grow as much as they can. We guarantee them that their produce will be taken by the National Marketing Authority or Agricultural Marketing Authority, so that anything that they produce quality will not be wasted. And this will be collected and distributed throughout, so it will also stabilize the price of local produce, whereas the farmer is assured that he's got virtually a guaranteed market so long as he produces quality stuff. We will also involve the local distribution people, the market vendors and others, because they also have a role to play in this. It cannot be done just by government. We've got to involve participation of the private sector in this as well. So that is the National Agri-Distribution Initiative. We will assist the farmers with inputs, farm inputs, make them affordable. We will assist with farm machinery to boost production, so that farmers have the necessary tools and they do farming in a modern way. We will make farm inputs affordable so that they don't feel overburdened with the cost of production, and the income that they get from that is sufficient. Then,
All right,
then
then.
we are talking about, sorry. And I've already talked about 50-year leases. And to assist the farmers further, there will be lease renewal subsidies, which would be paid by the government. At the moment, this problem that they face is that the premiums that are charged for lease renewals are rather stiff, and they need to be assisted. In fact, there is a cabinet decision on this, which the Fiji first government has never implemented, which was in 2008. There was a decision that the government will pay the premium on renewal of leases. We will bring that back so that farmers are assisted, and at the same time, landowners get those premiums. So it is premium will be paid to the landowners anyway, but the government will pay that rather than it being a burden on the farmers. And we will, in this way, we will boost production, agricultural production, first for local consumption, because we want to have the food prices stabilized, and then, of course, for export, Fiji produce, fresh produce, vegetables, fruits, etc., and are much in demand in our neighboring countries like Australia, New Zealand, even Canada and the US. So there should not be a problem with marketing. Now, of course, what we need to do is, what do you do with the surplus? Processing. Put it into processing so that we are able to process this and can it and preserve it and then export it. We used to have all this at one point in time. We were canning pineapple juice here, we were canning pineapple here, we were making orange juice, we were making guava juice and passion fruit juice. We were exporting passion fruit pulp to Germany from here. All these have disappeared. Now we've got to bring all those back. I mean, it was happening 20, 30 years ago. What happened? You can see that. All these were there. What happened? How did they disappear? How has our sugar production come down from 4 million tons to 1.5 million tons? Our dairy industry, our rice, at one point in time, we were 80% self-sufficient in rice. Today, we don't even produce 20%. But all these we've done in the past, and they have disappeared. So we've got to bring those back. The potential is there. The point is that must be resourced, and the focus must be on it. Agriculture must get the kind of funding that it deserves, and we must revive the rural sector, because that's where the opportunities are, that's where jobs are, that's where the better lifestyles are.
Now, given what you've just said, revival of that agricultural sector, do you think that your plans will be sustainable, given that agriculture, forestry, fishery sectors, they've been neglected for so long?
Yes, it will be. We'll have to work at it, but that's where the sustainability lies, to make it work, and it will work. Because look, I think food security is going to become an issue. Food security is going to become an issue, a global issue. It is already there. You look at the Ukrainian war, and you look at the shortage of grains. You look at how the prices are shooting up. You look at how food prices are going up, milk prices are going up, flour prices are going up, everything. So we must make sure that we produce enough to feed our people. And who will do that? Only our farmers. So we're also addressing food security problem, because it's going to become more acute. These prices which have gone up will not come down, are unlikely to come down in a hurry. So yes, the answer to that is that we must increase our capacity, produce enough, surplus should be processed, it should be exported, and I think if we do it right way, manage it right way, it'll be a success.
Well said. In fact, when you spoke about production in Fiji in the past, You mentioned things like passion fruit pulp, orange juice, etc., guava juice. One that immediately comes to mind, years ago we could buy canned duruka overseas. Nowadays you just don't find them anymore. Um, it's a missing item on the shelves of supermarkets. Now, Mr. Chaudhry, another fresh initiative that your party has spelled out in its manifesto is that Labour has committed to reversing rural decline. Now, this is absolutely interesting. What are your plans here, sir?
Well, first of all, it is to improve the infrastructure. There is a huge infrastructure deficit. Over the years, governments have not invested enough in rural infrastructure. Even in urban infrastructure, that's another story. Mm-hmm. But I would put our current infrastructure deficit, both rural and urban, at around $20 to $30 billion. You look at our ports are need to be replaced. But I'm looking now at the rural sector. So, Vanvalevu, Tavyuni, Ovalau, Kandavu, Koro Island, other outer islands, they are underdeveloped because governments have not put in resources to develop these areas, infrastructure development. What we propose to do is to put in a special allocation of 50 million annually, and this will go up, for infrastructure development for places like what I just mentioned, Vanvalevu and outer islands. You take Tavyuni, for instance, or Ovalau. These are very historical places. There's a lot of potential there. There are a lot of people who are there. They're doing farming and there's some tourism, but the full potential of these places has not been realized because of lack of investment and constraints that are there. I think we can develop local tourism and all that sort of thing. One of the things is the cost of getting there. Connectivity, very poor connectivity, and unaffordable for most of the locals. We've got to improve on all those things so that these areas can also contribute to the national economy. But until such time as you put resources in there, you make this available for people to go and settle there and engage in economic activity, it will not happen. So you have to create.
Yes. So sorry, I wanted to just pick up on that. So a annual pledge of, say, $50 million for infrastructure development, say for Vanvalevu, what does this do to the people up north in terms of confidence, in terms of, the drive within them? How will it just affect them?
I think it will boost their morale. There will be activity. I think it will also encourage, because when we talk about 50 million, we'll talk to people here, investors. We'll assist them to go and set up factories or whatever they can in terms of investing in the products or produce or in tourism, local tourism or whatever, to kickstart the economies of these places. And I think you have to do that, because if you don't do that, you can't get private capital to go there and develop these places for you.
Sure.
No way. It's the responsibility of the government.
Mr. Chaudhry, another one of your initiatives is to develop agricultural estates according to your manifesto. Please tell us more. What is this about, and who will this benefit, the agricultural estates that you want to develop?
This will benefit, mainly people who are in urban areas at the moment, in our squatter settlements. They haven't got jobs here. They do casual jobs, menial jobs. They're living under very, very unpleasant conditions, insanitary conditions, settlements and all that. Now, if we are able to develop industrial estates, sorry, not industrial, agricultural estate, you don't need very big land for that. A small farm, 2 to 3 acres is sufficient for livelihoods. Government leases this land from the landowners. It develops this into agricultural estate and settles people there. They plant, and then the crop is taken by the AMA. It's exported. Let me give you an example. There's very high demand for Fiji, say chilies or boda bean or whatever, taro or duruka and all that. Now, there we could be planting all this, guaranteed market. You put a small house there for this family. You've got to create this to take them there. You can't expect them to go there, clear the land and build their own house and then start all these things. No. I'll take you back to how Sianganga estate was developed. It was developed by during Ratumara's time, and it was a World Bank loan. Land was cleared, and farms were then prepared, and the first year's crop was planted, and then the farmers were settled. Now we've got to do something like that. You can't expect them to do all this. And then, of course, they will pay for this. The houses that will be built there, they will pay for it over a period of time. So because they'll own all this. But what they are doing is moving them away from a squatter settlement, giving them the decent life, and this would be close. They would get other amenities there. We're coming down to rural hubs. If you go down there, we'll be creating rural hubs to service these estates, and in this way, you create. They will be planting just one crop, which is market is guaranteed. We talk about, all right, you're planting duruka, you're planting boda, you're planting chilies or whatever, and it can be done. So when they will be assisted, they will get all the technical assistance and startup assistance, and within 2 or 3 years, you'll have a thriving agricultural state. People, maybe you moved 100 families, 200 families out to these farms. But you got to do something about this. We cannot just stagnate and do nothing and let this squatter settlements grow. And this government has done nothing. Previous governments have done nothing to move people out, to give them decent homes, decent job opportunities. These are people who are stagnating there. Many of them in these squatter settlements have become grandfathers. They were born there. They've had children there. They married there. Right? They've now got grandchildren there. And they're still there. And that is no environment to bring up your children. Everybody is entitled to decent living conditions. And this is what we are all about. Because we care for them. We don't want them to live under these kind of conditions. We want to give them a life worth living. But you need a government which cares and which thinks about these things. And that is what labor is all about.
All right. Let's take a little break. Let's hear a message from the Fiji Labour Party. When we come back, Mr. Chaudhry will talk about essential services, water, electricity, and a lot more to discuss with you this afternoon. A little break right now, please.
Fiji Labour Party was formed in 1985 to give a voice to the workers. They formed government in 1987 under Timothy Bavandra, and again in 1999 under Mahendra Chaudhry. It was labor that created 9.6% economic growth, the biggest economic growth Fiji has ever had, with increases in sugarcane and tourism, low inflation, and a strong Fijian dollar. It was labor that removed VAT and essentials, introduced a student loan scheme, increased fee-free education to Form 5 level, and reduced water and electricity rates. Imagine if Labour were given their full term in office.
That break there with that ad for Fiji Labour Party. Now, Mr. Chaudhry, for any government not to be able to provide the very basic of necessities in having clean drinking water in their taps and not having readily available electricity supply in their homes either speaks of total incompetence of the government or something being drastically wrong in the entire infrastructure network. Now, what are the Fiji Labour Party's plans to ensure there is ready available supply of clean drinking water and electricity for the people of Fiji?
Yes. Well, it is a basic necessity. It's no longer luxury. Electricity is no longer a luxury. And water, of course, is a basic necessity. People have a right to clean drinking water. The Constitution, 2013 Constitution also says so. That it is a basic right, a fundamental right, clean drinking water. But in many places, we don't have that at the moment. And where we have it, there are virtually disruptions, water cuts, and water pressure is low. Yes, there's a lot of room for improvement there. Now, let me take you back. Right now, when we look at the budget for Water Authority of Fiji, it's over 200 million a year. Over 200 million a year. That's a lot of money. And if you're not able to provide continuous water in our taps, one wonders what is happening. Why? PWD was doing all these things for a lot less, maybe 1/10 of the budget, current budget, in its days. But we didn't have so many water cuts those days. There's been investment in the water infrastructure over the years, but the problem's still there. We have the Viria water supply, which will probably come in line, God knows when, but they're telling us, for sewer people, sewer people, that when that comes online, your problems will be solved. Well, we don't know. We don't know whether it will be really solved. So yes, this will have to be looked at very, very thoroughly. Why, despite such huge investments in water infrastructure, we still have this problem. I think there are a lot of issues. Well, look, the $33 million digger scam, you probably know about that, in the Water Authority of Fiji.
Absolutely.
This is where money has been going, This is where money has been going. People have been taking advantage. There is a lot of corruption in some of these public enterprises. People are getting away with murder. And despite the fact that this matter has been reported to FICAC several years ago, FICAC has done nothing about it. It still remains uninvestigated. Now, how could one possibly get away with this kind of rot? $33 million for digger hire, Water Authority of Fiji. There's your answer. When you really are looking at it, there's your answer. So money is not going into real investment in improving the water supply situation. Somebody else other people are making money out of this. And so a lot of cleaning up will have to be done to get the nation rid of people who are responsible for such scams, let me put it this way.
Having said that,
Because
You've been talking about scams. We've all heard about the $33 million digger scam, the huge funding for the WAF. Now, on the other side of the coin is the EFL privatization. Now, your manifesto has mentioned that there will be an examination of the EFL privatization. Now, what will this entail and where does the problem lie with electricity supply? Where do you think?
Well, first of all, we don't see why we had to partially privatize EFL. It is a profitable state enterprise. It was never in any financial trouble. It has been making very good profits all along. So what is the need to sell it? There was no need, absolutely. And it is a essential service provider. It is a strategic asset, and it must remain in the hands of the people. It is an asset built by the people with their money. It is not an asset which is to be sold so some other people can profiteer from this, because the returns are very good. And the interests of the consumer must always be protected, not the interests of the shareholder. Once you move it to that kind of an arrangement, what becomes paramount then is the interest of the shareholder. So we'll expect the electricity tariffs to keep increasing because they will want more and more profits. So there is a conflict. Now, if a public enterprise is doing well, why sell it? And I think why they sold it was that they needed money to pay off the loans.
Now, I understand that your policies also look at a future buyback plan of the EFL. What do you plan here?
Well, we definitely would look at it because we feel we are very strong on this policy of keeping strategic public assets in public hands. And particularly things like water, electricity, ports, airports. Well, this must not be given away to foreign interests. It's a question also of your sovereignty. These are strategic assets. It's a question of your security. National security also comes into this. And these kind of assets needs to be in your own hands, in the hands of your own government, your own people, and not be alienated to foreigners. Because privateers will want you to do that. But no, we've got to look at our own, to protect our own interests, our own national interests and the interests of our people.
All right, now tell me something, Mr. Chaudhry. Is getting uninterrupted supply of water to households in Fiji a reality or a distant dream?
It should become a reality. It'll become a reality under Labour. There are a lot of things happening there also, we know, which again are scams, because it serves the interests of some people that there are these kind of disruptions so they can make some money out of it in terms of distributing water and things like that. There are stories that you hear, what is happening, like the digger scam I told you about, right? There are other associated scams. And until such time as you get to the bottom of this problem will never be solved. So that's why
Right.
it's so...
My apologies. I know
So,
my screen is frozen, but we'll keep going because
okay.
your delivery is coming out nice and clear. So we'll keep going while I try to fix my camera up. All right. Well, let's move on to another very interesting part of your manifesto plan, and that is, let me say, I've long been an advocate for empowering our women folk. In my work as a solicitor, I've come across many victims of domestic violence and other crimes against women, I must congratulate you and the Fiji Labour Party for your vision for empowering women in Fiji. I understand that Labour will set up a gender equality commission. Please tell us a bit more about this planned commission.
Yes, we propose to establish a Gender Equality Commission to review existing legislation, to remove discrimination against women and non binary genders, and ensure that new laws firmly represent all genders. It will safeguard fair wages for women in the formal and informal sectors. We want to support women in commerce. We will establish a credit facility under government guarantee for women in productive areas of the economy so that to facilitate their participation in commerce, particularly women who are sole breadwinners or women who have time on their hands and could take advantage of such schemes. Uh, so I must also say that we are fortunate, Fiji is fortunate that there are a number of women's organizations which are doing an excellent job in promoting the interests of the women, in fighting against discrimination and violence against women. And we fully endorse their work and fully support them, and we will increase our support for such organizations so that our women are treated as equal as men. They constitute almost 50% of the population. They constitute 50% of the voters, and they look after our homes, they look after our children. They do a lot more than men, indeed, when you come to think about it. So they deserve our respect, they deserve to be honored, and they deserve to be cared for.
Well said. Now, the Labour Manifesto also speaks of setting up a domestic violence and child exploitation task force. What is the focus here?
Yes, I think we need that because this is that is the biggest area where women are ill-treated, are molested, and we need to have a task force to deal with this. We've got to take a very proactive stance on this because it will not happen by itself. We have to be at it continually until such time as we've come to grips with the situation and start reversing the current unhappy trends. So it will be the
Well
job,
said.
responsibility of this special task force. You've got to have a task force doing this.
Well thought out, I believe. That is a wonderful plan. Now, there's also a plan to begin domestic dispute resolution services as well. What will be the benefits derived from such a mediation service?
Well, we think that it is in the long run. It is basically to reconcile the families, to reconcile the disputants. We feel that at the end of the day, children are more important, and whatever be the outcome, their interest must be paramount. So, mediation services, conciliatory approach. If we can save the family, if we can save the marriage and the future for the children, that would be good. So we would be wanting to see that kind of an approach rather than an approach which is which will, in the end, probably result in separation of the family. We wouldn't like to see that. So we would put resources to see if we can assist keeping families together.
All right. Now, I think, Mr. Chaudhry, the greatest assistance or empowerment that you can give women in our society
I'm unable to hear your question. You've
increasing
disappeared from the
economic
screen as well.
empowerment. All
I'm
right, let
unable
me
to hear
just
your
see if I can
question.
get that.
You have disappeared from the screen as well. So if you can get back.
All right, let me see if I can get back. Yes, can you hear me now? Can you see me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, I did a phantom disappearing act. My phone gave up on me. All right. As I was saying, I think the greatest assistance or empowerment that you can give women in our society is the ability for them to increase their economic empowerment. Let me raise your plans for women in commerce. How do you go about increasing economic empowerment of women? What plans do you have?
Well, give them the tools, and their ingenuity will give you the results. At the moment, many of them don't have the wherewithal, or rather the capital to start. And this is not easy for them to get from commercial banks or even existing government institutions. So work has to be done on that to make capital available to them to start off whatever their plans are for entering the world of commerce, no matter how small the initiative may be, because it will grow if it's managed properly. So we propose to make capital available to them at a very reasonable rate of interest and accessibility also. And then, of course, assist them with the guidance that is needed and the advice that is needed, whatever is necessary to make their initiatives succeed. They need to be specially taken care of. Yes, this will be the Ministry of Women will be strengthened to deal with this and provide special assistance.
Right. And what about particular emphasis on women's health? How would you prioritize women's health?
Well, that will be through improvements to the National Health Service. I think we all fit into that. And there would be special arrangements for women, their health, their reproductive health, and generally. So these are matters of detail, which, of course, when we talk about a healthy nation, we've got to look at it holistically. Everybody's health, including women. Women are very important. Their health must be looked after. So what are the special needs for them will be also the responsibility of the health ministry to have a proper plans for those and proper facilities for women and their health. In pregnancy also, antenatal, prenatal, all that sort of thing. These are matters of detail. When you talk about quality health service, it's all inclusive.
Well said. Let's move on to what your manifesto labels, or the headline is Fairness and Democracy. Now, under the headline Fairness and Democracy, you speak of 100% employment, safeguarding workers and union rights, a decent wage for all, and a safe and secure workplace. Let us please explore these areas. Now, you have a 6-point plan for the civil service reform. Let me take you step by step in this. Firstly, you speak of restoring permanent employment. Please explain further. How do you do this?
Yes, at the moment, as you know, the Fiji First government has taken away the permanent employment status of civil servants and substituted it with short-term contracts. What we propose to do is to revoke this arrangement of short-term contracts and put everybody on permanent establishment, as used to be the practice before this happened. So whether you are a school teacher, you're a doctor, whatever, if you're holding a established civil service position, you have permanent employment. Now, permanent employment doesn't mean that you cannot ever be removed. It can only be removed for disciplinary offenses and for incompetence. Otherwise, you are there as a permanent employee on a position of permanent establishment. So out with the short-term employment contracts, so individual employment contracts.
Well said. Now, you've also made a commitment to review current pay structures. What is the aim here, Mr. Chaudhry?
Well, I think a review is necessary. There hasn't been, I'm told, a general pay increase in the public service since 2012. There have been piecemeal reviews here and there, and the whole service, I'm told, is, according to the public service unions, is out of kilter. What they need is a holistic review, but the first priority is to grant them a general increase.
Okay.
People who have been on the same salary since 2012. You can imagine the cost of living that has gone up since then. It's 10 years. So something has to be done about that, so that at least there is some compensation for them there. Then in consultation with the unions, in agreement with the unions, they must conduct a comprehensive review of the civil service positions, establish its job worth and remuneration and working conditions for that. So this is what we have in mind. It's a big exercise, but it needs to be done to streamline and modernize the public service and have a contented public service, give their worth and not suppress them and take away their rights.
You have also made a commitment to depoliticize the civil service. What will this involve?
Yes. The Fiji first government has really politicized the public service. They put people there, although they talk about merit system. I frankly think it's not like that. So we must depoliticize so that decisions are taken by an independent public service commission, which is not dictated to by the minister. It must be, we have to bring back the independence of the Public Service Commission by appointing people who are truly independent and people of repute in society, people who are known to be impartial and independent, like what it used to be in the past, and bring back an independent Public Service Commission for appointments, promotions, and disciplinary procedures in the public service, and give them the authority to do that without instructions from the ministers.
All right. You've also called for a review of the Employment Relations Act. How will this help the parties involved, the players?
Yes, we need to do that because one of the grievances of the unions and the employees who are victims of dismissals or disciplinary penalties or whatever, it takes too long for these disputes to be resolved by the existing machinery. And I think we need to put a timeline to it. It's very important that people get justice within a reasonable period. You can't have a person who's got a dispute in the tribunal, industrial tribunal, for 5 years it hasn't been resolved. For 3 years it hasn't been resolved. Now this must change. This must change. The tribunal must be really independent, and there must be a timeline within which these disputes must be resolved. It must be, a decision must be taken on that. You can't have somebody suspended for 2 years, 3 years, or even longer in some cases. So this is what we are meaning, that we put a timeline to this, a resolution of industrial disputes, whether they be personal in nature or be a group dispute, whatever it be. There are people in a queue in the labor ministry waiting for decisions. And this is not coming because the labor tribunal, somebody is busy, they're doing that, and there's nothing to put any pressure on them. You can't do anything. The system just simply is structured like that. Oh, right, it's okay, it's not urgent, so we won't deal with it. But if you put in a statutory period within which such disputes must be resolved, then I think it will be a very good thing, both for the workers as well as for the employers.
I totally support that because here in Australia, most of the tribunals that we have, they're governed by legislation as to a time frame within which they have to make certain decisions, and that is
Right.
part of the legislative requirement. And I believe that is
Yes.
something that is really needed in Fiji as well.
Mm.
Now, I understand that another plan is to provide appeal rights. Please explain this.
Yes, appeal rights on promotions and disciplinary penalties and transfers. These rights were there. As you probably know, that I was the General Secretary of the Fiji Public Service Association, a
Yes.
position which I held for 29 years before I got into politics. And even at the time of independence, I remember these appeal rights when our politicians at the time, led by Ratuseka Mrs. Semara and opposition leader Mr. Siddiq Koya, were in London doing a constitution, independence constitution. We made a submission from here, seeking their cooperation to provide for appeal rights in the constitution. And that was granted. We had a public service appeals board set up after that. So that's been taken away. And we want to reinstate those rights because they have no other avenue. And this is the reason why we said that these were rights which were once existing. They must be brought back. There must be transparency and accountability. You cannot treat public servants as if they are your slaves. They must work with dignity and be respected and treated as such.
Well said again. Now, you mentioned the word dignity. So, you have another plan, one that I'm sure will bring a smile and dignity back in people's lives, and that is your policy on retirement age. What are your plans here, Mr. Chaudhry?
Well, retirement age was reduced from 60 to 55. We're saying that it'll be put back to 60, but I think it should probably be, people can work beyond that. Why retirement at 60? If a person's skill is needed and he is in good health, he or she should be able to continue. So, yeah, we may even be seeing a day when probably it would be extended to 65. But for the time being, talking about bringing back what was there. Let's regain that first and then talk about something else later.
Yes, I mean, here in Australia, our retirement age used to be, well, I say used to be 65. Now they're sort of aiming for 67 and a half. And there is talk that in a few years' time, they may even hit 70. That's the standard of life and the sort of output that workers can give. So, getting it back to that status quo of 60 years in Fiji will go a long way of bringing dignity back into people's lives. Now, I've saved
Yes,
one.
Sashi, you say that because you're fortunate in Australia, there's almost full employment. The unemployment rate is very, very small, very little. So it's
Yes.
virtually, full
Now,
employment, and this is what we are aiming at
Chaudhry,
here.
sure.
Yeah.
Fiji National Provident Fund, the FNPF. What are your plans for that?
Oh, we have lots of plans for that. First of all, we will not have unscrupulous governments pillage the pension fund. They've used it, they've abused it, they've used it for purposes for which it was never intended. They've changed the legislation. They've completely revoked, repealed the act under which it was established, replaced it with another legislation which does not accord with the intent of pension funds. They've turned it into a corporate institution. Now, under the 1966 Act, Provident Fund Act, it was established in 1966, 1st August 1966. The governance structure of the fund was tripartite. There were 2 representatives of the workers, 2 of the employers, and a government representative, which constituted the board of the fund. Now, today, there's nothing like that. Workers' representatives are not there. Employers' representatives per se are not there. All appointments are made to the board by the minister himself, or Minister for Economy or Finance. So that has happened. It has been, the fund has been hijacked. Now, then in 2012, they, under the guise of carrying out reforms, what they did, they reduced the pension rate from 15% to 8%, almost halving it. So if you're getting a pension of, say, $500 a month, after the reform, it was reduced to $250. And this was done arbitrarily. Nobody was informed about it. It just came by way of a decree. And they also provided for that in that decree that decision could not be challenged in any court of law. That's how they did that. So it was arbitrary imposition. Your pension was being halved. They stole your pension, and under the guise that their advice was that the fund was unsustainable. If the pension rate that was there for 15% was unsustainable and was a threat to the viability of the fund. There was nothing like that. This was all concocted, and so that happened. Now, we intend to revisit all those reforms and correct the position, bring back. We intend to put back the pension rate to 15%. And we intend also to increase the contribution rate back to pre-COVID level, which was 10% employer, 8% employee. We increased to restore the tripartite governance structure, to bring back the legislation as it was.
Okay.
So yes, a very comprehensive review of the FNPF, and certainly one of the other initiatives we are taking, what we will do is to the $180 million that was used by the members during COVID to sustain themselves, because there was no government assistance coming. Government told them, you got a pension fund, you draw your money and you feed yourself from that. Now, we intend to put back that money to their accounts. It was the responsibility of the government to look after the people in a time of crisis. This government didn't do it. It just passed the burden on to the people, told them to use their pension fund. No, that is injustice. That is wrong, morally wrong, absolutely wrong. We will put that money back. Now, there are some very, very startling, figures here, and I'm reading from a news report in the dated 4th of December 2021. It's fairly recent, and it says over 58,000 FNPF members have zero balance.
Wow.
188,288 members have less than 5,000 in their accounts. And this is statistics from the fund. They've depleted members' balances to this extent, and but there are also 227 FNPA members who have over $500,000 in their accounts, and some of our
Yes.
politicians are in that category.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, there's a lot to be done in terms of where Fiji is and where Fiji ought to be. You've also said that minimum wage in Fiji is inadequate. What will you do to address the wage imbalance?
Minimum wage has to be adequate enough to meet the basic needs. That is how we see the minimum wage. That's our concept of a minimum wage. It should be sufficient to meet the basic needs. So we intend to do that. We consider the current wage to be inadequate, but what it should be is for determination using the criteria that it should be sufficient to meet the basic needs, and minimum wage should be geared to that concept rather than anything else.
All right. Have a little drink of water, Mr. Chaudhry. You deserve a break. I'll come back to you in just a moment. You are watching Sashi Singh's Talking Point, and our chief guest is Mr. Mahendra Chaudhry. Hope wherever you are watching this program from, that you are enjoying the discussion so far. Mr. Chaudhry, some quick fire questions. First of all, what are Labour's plans for council, municipal elections?
Yes, of course, we'll restore elections. We'll restore the elections which were taken, which were removed by this government at the secondary level, at the provincial councils, municipal councils, and of course the growers' councils. So we'll bring those back because that's what democratic governance is all about. They took it away, and we'll have to put it back. So we will democratize the whole governance, including the central and the local government. It has to be done.
Okay. Covis has been the government's spin doctors for their public relations exercise. What are your plans for Covis, an American-based company, if you get into government?
They will have to go. There was no Covis before Fiji first came in. There is a Ministry of Information. That's what their job is, to talk about government, to write speeches for the ministers and all that. So there's no need for an outside public relations organization to write speeches for our ministers and do their propaganda. No, that they will go.
All right. What are your plans for the reinstatement of the 102 FRCS staff and teachers? They were hard done by.
Yes, they all have to be reinstated. Anybody who was in this, there were also Vote Authority of Fiji people, employees, who were made redundant and who didn't get any compensation or any benefits. You can't call it benefits anyway, any compensation. So we'll have to do on a case-by-case basis. We have to do justice to these workers, because as a government which talks of, as a party which talks of justice, freedom, and democracy, we have to put in place machinery to grant justice to people who feel aggrieved. They cannot go to court to get justice. It's far too expensive. It's too far expensive. The governments must provide the necessary machinery, make it accessible to the people. Make it accessible to the people and make it affordable to the people. At the end of the day, they must get justice. If they were not treated fairly, they must get justice.
Will that also include those Fiji Airways and ATS employees that were unfairly terminated in May 2000?
Yes, they've had to go to court, poor people, for that. I don't know what the court decision is at the moment, but the case certainly hasn't been finalized. It's they got it. It's on appeal, I believe. But yes, there has to be just a resolution of these kind of disputes. You cannot just brush them under the carpet. There has to be a just resolution of these kinds of disputes.
Okay. How will Labour combat human and drug trafficking issues in Fiji?
That is a huge problem. That is a huge problem, and it's a serious problem. And it's a recent problem. In the last 10 or 15 years, maybe less, that it has assumed this very worrying, disturbing proportions. And we have to do something about this, because I believe that there are people involved in this. This is hearsay. I'm not, but nonetheless, I have reason to believe that it needs to be tackled, and this will have to be. We'll have to engage experts to deal with this problem. We must deal with it and eradicate it, eliminate it. Human trafficking and drug trafficking also is mentioned in the human rights reports on Fiji. So it doesn't give the country a good name, and I think part of the problem here is because we opened our doors to all and sundry, right? The requirement for entry visas was liberalized, and we started getting people from countries coming in, which are known for this kind of offenses, which are known for this kind of problems, human and drug trafficking, coming in here and bringing this problem with them, including prostitution. This is a recent phenomenon under the Fiji First government, and we've got to deal with this. And it's come down to our own people, our own children, in terms of drugs, hard drugs, in our secondary schools. Forget about marijuana. I'm talking about hard drugs in our secondary schools. And those who can't afford that, of course, they've gone on to glue sniffing. It's a serious problem, glue sniffing in this country. A shopkeeper in Central Suva, a fairly busy shop, he tells me that the top selling item in his shop is glue. It's glue.
Wow.
This is it is
right.
very bad.
I understand that Labour Party manifesto also has a disaster relief fund planned. Tell us more on that, please.
Well, this is something which I had proposed when I was Prime Minister, that we should set aside money for a rainy day. When things are okay, you put it aside. So, and because we're a country which was prone to cyclones, flooding, and all that sort of thing, we got to prepare for that. So each year from the annual budget, we put aside a sum of $20 million to a fund, and leave that money there, add to it 20 million again next year. So you have a pool of funds there. When you are hit, you don't have to go here and there looking for money. It's there, and we can provide immediate relief with that to the victims. What's happening now is, because there is no provision for this kind of thing in our budget, or if there is a provision, it's a very, very little. It's very small, not enough to cater for the needs. And then what we do is we start doing a survey, and we start looking for money, where to get this money from. That takes about 6 weeks. And by that time, people are in dire straits. And this is why the government has always been very late in getting relief across to people who have been hit by disasters. It's usually, you find that it's private citizens, NGOs, and political parties which precede them. So this is why we said, it's our policy to put aside money for a rainy day and use it. It's available, use it.
Okay, let me now address what your manifesto has stated as law and freedom. The manifesto has plain and simply stated that the 2013 Constitution is deeply flawed. Now, what institutions of freedom would you like to see being immediately restored?
What I mean by freedom is that our freedom should be restored. Freedom to assemble, freedom to express, freedom to speak, freedom to associate, freedom to collective bargaining for the workers, freedom of trade unions to bargain for their members, freedom for the people to determine their own activities and affairs on an institutional basis, like, for instance, provincial councils, municipal elections. These were freedoms which have been taken away. They were all there. So, first of all, this Public Order Act, that's got to go. And there are other restraints which need to be looked at and removed, because what we must have is what is normal in a democratic society. Our practices must relate to that. If we are a democracy, we must have democracy in the real sense of the word. We are not there at the moment. No, we don't have that. So we must bring back our lost rights, our lost freedoms. People are afraid. There is a pervasive environment of fear and intimidation as we had for the Poles. Yes.
Coming to
there is.
that.
Yes.
I'm just coming to that in a moment.
Yes, so this is what we are supposed to do. That look, and I've said that in my political meetings and all that, this is an issue for this election, right? Your rights, your freedom. This is an issue. The cost of living is, housing is, and all that. But look, this is also an issue, and it's a very important issue. It is an issue which concerns your dignity. We're all born free, men and women. Anybody who takes our freedom, we must fight back and get that freedom back so that we can all live and our children can live. Because unless you have that, we cannot progress in this country. A country where there is no democracy, where people are not free, will never progress.
Mr. Chaudhry, what are your thoughts about the armed forces? Should the armed forces be autonomous?
The armed forces, I think, armed forces are not autonomous in a democracy. They are subject to the direction of a minister. And in our case here, it is the Minister for National Security and Defense. So whilst they have operational autonomy, in terms of accountability and all that, they are answerable to the elected government. And of course, that is the authority is exercised by the relevant minister. So hello, can you hear me?
All right. Okay, Mr. Chaudhry, as we head to the finish line, you just raised the issue of fear being instilled even during campaigning. Now, it has been disturbing to note that the Fiji First Party leader used such words as stabbing, murder, blood spilled on our land, and unlawful entering of properties will happen. Now, Vorengan Bainimarama used these words in his political rally at Syria Park in Nosori this past week. At a time when the population in Fiji is regarded as Fijians, everyone's a Fijian, you have said that Bainimarama party. Question: what is wrong here? Is this a sign of worrying times ahead for the Fiji First leader, that he must resort to fear-mongering and downright racial incitement? What is your response to this, sir?
Well, I issued a statement on that. I said, well, for him to use words like murder and blood will spill, and there will be forceful entry into properties, and all that is very very alarming. What he's doing is spreading alarm amongst the people, and certainly it is an offense, in my view, under the Public Order Act to be doing that. And I had called that the authorities. I had called for an investigation by the authorities on that. Not that it will happen, judging from how things are here. But yes, certainly, it's very unbecoming of him, unless, of course, he is now at a pressure point, where he is resorting to this kind of statements and words, which are very, very frightening for people. I think so. But I would say to the people, do not be afraid. Do not take this seriously. And I haven't heard, for instance, any political party claiming that this will happen, as Prime Minister alleged. So, where did he get this from? And if there was such a thing, why didn't he report this to the authorities? So if this is just a political gimmick on his part to try and create an environment to get votes, then I think proper action should be taken in the matter.
All right. Well, having heard what you've just said, I'm sure that had you or any other opposition party leaders mentioned anything as remotely as close to what the Prime Minister said, you would have had an action immediately started by FICAC. The supervisor of elections would have burst a blood vessel, I'm sure. All hell would have broken loose. Even the police would have been involved. Are there double standards at play here, Mr. Chaudhry? One rule for the opposition and no rule for the government. Please be careful, as I do not want you to be FICAC'd.
Well, certainly, there must be something wrong if the authorities haven't moved so far on this statement. It shows a preference that some people can say anything and get away with it, whereas others, even if they say things which are right, will be questioned about it. Yes, we've said about this, we've complained about this, that there are double standards, and but that is the reality. That is the ground reality in Fiji at the moment. This is why I was talking about getting our freedoms back, getting a level playing field, a law and order situation, the rule of law, and all that. At the moment, it's all so up in the air that you can say that some laws apply to some people, they don't apply to the others, that there are double standards.
Are you going to lodge an official complaint against this racial incitement on the part of the Prime Minister?
I've made a statement and calling on the authorities to look into it. And there we are.
Okay.
Now, I've tried in the past. I'll tell you what. I've given up making complaints. I've tried in the past so many times, and nobody worries, nobody cares. Because they don't action it on a number of in a number of cases, particularly concerning the elections, on the electoral laws and on political party matters. But anyway, I think the thing is to deal with this. The best way to deal with it is to have a change of government and remove all these kind of things for once and for all.
Which raises an interesting point. We have some multi-observers in Fiji for the purposes of the election. And I'm wondering, such an insightful statement by the head of the Fiji First Party, what sort of message that sends to these multi-observers? Just a thought out there.
Yes, of course. Indeed, I'm sure they've taken note of it. And we will be making submissions to the MOG on issues that have been of concern to us in this election. So this may well get included into that.
Mr. Chaudhry, I want to raise another point with you. what is your reaction to the government making announcements of all permanent secretary appointments just a few days ago? Surely this could have waited, as the government is supposed to be in a caretaker mode, and all such permanent appointments could have waited till after the election to see which government comes in. Your thoughts, please.
Yes, indeed. It's very unconventional, if not unethical, to do that for an outgoing prime minister. This shouldn't have been done. These positions were there for so long. Why weren't these appointments made well before the elections? To do that, clearly, as I said, that the civil service has been politicized. So this is a good example of politicization of the service. And I think this is also, we talked about, so many expatriates being appointed to permanent secretary positions, something which was rare in the past. So I think this is another vote buying thing by him to say, all right, let's make some, get rid of some expatriate PSs and appoint locals, and so that this criticism can be put aside. But no, it's unethical. This also happened in 1999, just before the elections. Appointments were made to diplomatic positions, just on the verge of elections. Ambassadors and high commissioners were appointed. And so this is just not right. It is unethical. It's not conventional.
All right, Mr. Chaudhry, we'll take our last break with your Fiji Labour Party advertisement, and then we come back and we talk about possible election outcomes, thresholds, and your alliances, if any, with any other political party. We'll take a short break right now, sir.
Fiji Labour Party was formed in 1985 to give a voice to the workers. They formed government in 1987 under Timothy Babandra, and again in 1999 under Mahendra Chaudhry. It was Labour that created 9.6% economic growth, the biggest economic growth Fiji has ever had, with increases in sugarcane and tourism, low inflation, and a strong Fijian dollar. It was Labour that removed VAT on essentials, introduced a student loan scheme, increased fee-free education to Form 5 level, and reduced water and electricity rates. Imagine if Labour were given their full term in office.
That advertisement from the Fiji Labour Party. All right, let me just assure you we're just about coming to the end, Mr. Chaudhry. It's been a long session, and a last one for you on this platform before the 11th of December. Let me now explore with you your party's plans in the event there is no clear majority held by a political party after the results come out. If the Fiji Labour Party does cross the threshold, will you be willing to join forces with a party to form a coalition government? If so, which party?
My answer would be that we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Mm-hmm. As you know, Labour is on its own at the moment. We don't have any agreement with anyone. And we will wait for the results and we'll see how it is. I think more importantly, the people need a Labour government. For far too long, the ordinary citizens of this nation have been taken for a ride. They have made huge sacrifices. I'm talking about the workers and farmers, small business operators and all that. They have not received justice at the hands of governments. This must be corrected. This must be corrected. Parties have come in, they've taken their votes, they've made them promises. Once in government, they've forgotten about them. They've forgotten about them. That's why our minimum wage is so low. That's why workers' rights are not there. That's why The farmers are not happy. That is why there is so much poverty in this country. That is why there is so much unemployment in this country, because the interests of the people have not been taken care of. Interests of particular groups of people have been taken care of, but the cost of national interest. We've got to correct this. People must realize that they can't go on like this. If they vote for the same people again, you'll have the same consequences. You'll have the same consequences. They must understand that if they want a change, a real change, if they want their lives to become better, if they want their children's lives to become better, if the youth of this country want jobs, if they want to have a meaningful life, if they want to have a house, if they want to raise a family, if they want to have the amenities and the good things in life that they're dreaming of, their aspirations and all that, no other government will give you that for the ordinary men and women. And we've seen that. We've seen this country go from a high to a low, and it's going down and down and down. I think immediately after independence, things were much better. But anyway, so this is my message to the people. It's very important that they understand. And who do we coalesce with? There must be a meeting of the minds, of the policies, and of the values. So we'll see, because as far as we're concerned, we are a party, a people's-oriented party, and we represent, as I said, the interests of the working class, the farmers, the small operators, the taxi drivers, the taxi owners, people who are small businesses, earning a livelihood for themselves. And we need to do all we can to uplift them. So to get back to your question, this message had to be given. I'm sorry, Sashi, but yes, there has to be a government in place. So if the people do us a favor and put us in that position to be a player in the game, certainly we will have to negotiate with the parties concerned. But certainly we've made it very clear that we will not be considering Fiji first at all, because Fiji first has to go. For the sake of Fiji, Fiji first has to go. For the sake of the people, Fiji first has to go, no matter what people say about it. We all know this is what we have today is given to us by Fiji first. Poverty, unemployment, high cost of living, social problems, all that sort of thing that we've talked about. That is their legacy. And they want a third term. What for? What for? We don't want more of the same. We want a change. We don't want more of the same. We want a change. So people must vote wisely. Other political parties in opposition must also look at themselves as to who they really want to represent. People who fund them, finance them, or is it the people generally? Whose interests? That's what Labour is all about.
You've saved me that one important question, and you've made a categorical statement on SSTP this afternoon that whatever forces you join, it certainly will not be with the Fiji First Party. I respect that, sir. Let me ask you to look into your imaginary crystal ball and tell me, how many seats do you believe you will win in this election, your Fiji Labour Party?
I think we'll do well. I think we'll do well. We'll surprise our critics. That is the best I can do in the circumstances. I wouldn't want to hazard a guess.
Sure.
But we are getting good support on the ground. And for us, actually, what is more important is to carry the voice of the people that we represent in this election or in any other future elections, and hope that that voice finds a place with those who will decide these elections. So, in all earnestness, I appeal to the people that we represent and to the people generally. Look, this election is very crucial for Fiji, for Fiji's future. And this applies to all. This applies to businesses and professionals and others. Let's get a change. Let's really work for the country instead of working for our own interest groups.
All right. Now, where can voters access your party's manifesto if they'd like to have a closer read?
It's on our website,
The Fiji Labour Party website.
Fiji Labour Party website.
All right. Well, Mr. Chaudhry, is there any other final word you'd like on today's program, sir?
Not really. I think I've said enough. But I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank you and the SSTP for taking this initiative. I would like to congratulate you on your first anniversary, completing your first anniversary. I think it's a very popular program. I hope that you will continue doing this even after the elections, because we do need people to come and speak. You provided a forum for that, and it's a popular program. So once again, thank you very much for doing this, for putting the focus on Fiji, and wish you all the best for the future. I'm sorry that our friend Nikhil is not here today. My good well wishes to him as well.
Well, he's watching, because I've just seen a little note here that Nikhil is watching from Melbourne. He must be on a break. Mr. Chaudhry, thank you very much for your kind words, sir. Finally, I would like to formally extend an invitation to you, as the leader of the Fiji Labour Party, to appear on that special program on SSTP on Sunday, 11th December 2022. As you know, I've mentioned today, on that Sunday, I will have all the major opposition party leaders in SSTP. We'll have a brief discussion with each one of you regarding your campaign, and most importantly, give you all, each one of you, an opportunity to deliver your opposition leader's address to the nation in your final appeal to voters. Will you please be so kind as to accept my invitation, Mr. Chaudhry?
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much for that opportunity.
All right, Mr. Chaudhry. Well, a very, very big thank you to you, sir. Dhanyavad. And big Vinaka Bakalevu for being my chief guest in episode 45 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. It has been an absolute pleasure looking at the Labour vision for a better Fiji. There are some real eye-openers in that document of yours, the manifesto. I hope our viewers found today's episode interesting. Sir, I wish you and all your candidates all the very best in your campaign, and I hope that you are safe from being FICAC'd. I look forward to seeing you on 11th of December this year.
Thank you.
Thank you and goodbye, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Anthony.
Well, that was Mr. Chaudhry. Don't go away, because I'm about to announce our next guests for next week. Let me remind our viewers that the next important date in the Fijian elections calendar is that postal voting applications are open and will close at 5 p.m. on 23rd November 2022. I have not received my postal voting papers yet, even though I've received an email from the Fiji Elections Office on the 11th of November stating, and I quote, "Dear Sashi Mahendra Singh, please be advised that we have processed your postal voting application form and you meet the legal requirements pursuant to Section 67(7) of the Electoral Act 2014. In view of this, your postal package will be posted to your nominated address before 24th November 2022. So fingers crossed. I hope to receive the postal ballot papers in the next few days. I will most certainly be. It is something that all Fijians should take part in this democratic process. To all my viewers, before you leave, let me remind you that our guest will be announced together with our supplementary guest in just a moment or two. SSTP, we ask the questions that Fijians all over the world want answers to. Fijians, as I say, want to know. Well, that's it for episode 45 this week. To my SSTP team, thank you for today's episode. I must also thank you, our viewers, for watching this program today. I thank those viewers who have taken time to provide their positive feedback with regards to this program. Thank you for your likes and emojis, especially to those of you who have sent stars. A big Vinaka Vakalevu. You are what makes this platform a huge, huge success. Now, let me reveal the name of our chief guest for the next episode. Ladies and gentlemen, the next opposition leader that will come to SSTP next Sunday is going to be none other than National Federation Party leader Professor Biman Prasad Chand, candidate number 427. And immediately following my interview with Professor Biman, I shall have the honor and privilege of speaking to a former guest of SSTP. She appeared on episode 12 of SSTP on Sunday, 13th March this year. Ladies and gentlemen, my second guest next Sunday will be none other than former founder and former CEO of Friend, Ms. Sashi Kiran. Now that Sashi Kiran has put her name in the political ring, it's all on. I'm really looking forward to her as she brings her political game to the forefront. If you have any questions for our chief guest, Professor Biman Prasad, or for Ms. Sashi Kiran, please send them via SSTP Messenger. I hope to see you next Sunday on episode 46 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point at 11 a.m. Sydney time, 12 noon in Fiji, 1 p.m. in New Zealand, and at 4 p.m. on Saturday afternoon in Los Angeles and San Francisco. So until the next episode, I wish you all have a very safe and happy week. In closing, before I leave you with this quote from Jairam Ramesh, who said, "There never is a good time for tough decisions. There will always be an election or something else. You have to pick courage and do it. Governance is about taking tough, even unpopular decisions." I'll repeat that quote. There never is a good time for tough decisions. There will always be an election or something else. You have to pick courage and do it. Governance is about taking tough, even unpopular decisions. That quote from Jairam Ramesh. Remember, Fiji, your vote has power. Exercise your right to vote. Well, that's it for episode 45 of Sashi Singh's Talking Point. Next week, it's episode 46. Till the next program, I am Sashi Singh bidding you goodbye, namaste, and ni samode. Goodbye, world.